All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here today. Before we get started, I want to take a quick minute to talk about Penny Insurance. So at Penny, we found that agents usually don't lose life insurance opportunities because there's no demand. They lose them because the process takes time, involves paperwork, and requires constant follow-up. And that's exactly why the Penny A-Team exists. The A-Team is our in-house group of licensed specialists who handle everything behind the scenes once you introduce the client. From the first conversation all the way through underwriting and policy issue, we manage the entire process from start to finish. So what does that mean? That means we handle the client conversation, we complete the applications and paperwork, we manage underwriting and carrier follow-ups, and we track every case and keep it moving. So agents can stay focused on what they do best, selling, advising, and growing their business, and not just chasing forms or status updates. This isn't outsourcing, it's an extension of your practice, supported by systems built to keep cases organized, compliant, and moving quickly. And the result is simple: more policies issued, more time back in your day, and a smoother experience for your clients. And with that, I'll pass it over to Charles. Welcome, Charles.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everybody. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about ILIT training for life insurance, kind of understanding, structuring, and identifying opportunities for irrevocable life insurance trusts. We'll do a small blurb about Penny as well. We're not just a little BGA anymore. We bring a full ecosystem. You get an outsourced life sales team to help you place larger cases, an in-house underwriter to pre-qualify risks and save you time, and a dedicated back office so you're not buried in paperwork. On the planning side, which is brand new, Penny supports advanced strategies like estate planning, business owner exit planning, and retirement solutions. The kinds of conversations that deepen client relationships and increase case size. Add in their life CRM and in-zone support, and you have an infrastructure of a large firm without the fixed cost. Bottom line, Penny helps you write more business, serve clients better, and grow faster without growing your payroll. So without any further ado, I'll kind of give you a little bit of a background on myself and introduce my colleague, and then we'll kind of jump into it. So my name's Charles King. I'm a financial advisor and executive with over a decade of experience across wealth management, insurance planning, and institutional leadership. I've spent most of my career at the intersection of investment management, insurance planning. I've served as a CIO, executive VP, and senior advisor across broker dealers, RIAs, and family offices. And I specialize in retirement income and annuities, corporate-owned life insurance, and business owner planning. I help firms turn complex strategies into compliant, advisor-friendly solutions that actually get used. Brief disclosure, I'm an investment advisor representative with MMLIS CRD 6034795. And this presentation is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute individualized investment, tax, or legal advice. Any strategies discussed should be evaluated based on each client's personal circumstances and coordinated with appropriate tax and legal professionals. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Jake Bruner. He's an estate planning attorney and is bar licensed in Colorado, Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and is the head counsel of Future Proof Law, LLC. Welcome,
Thanks,
Jake.
Charles. I appreciate the introduction. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Like Charles said, my name is Jake Bruner. I'm a private wealth and estate planning attorney based in Colorado, originally from the Midwest, born and raised in Cleveland. I spent most of the last 8 years working for some large law firms as an employment and business law attorney, working primarily with high net worth families, specifically ranchers, farmers out here in Colorado, which we have a lot of. Earlier this year, as Charles said, I founded a new law firm called Future Proof Law, LLC. We're a boutique estate planning firm geared towards helping millennials, millennial families, and digital asset holders prepare for the great wealth transfer and also protect their privacy, portability, and sovereignty in the digital age. So I look forward to being here today. Appreciate you all having me, and I'll turn it back over to Charles.
Excellent. So guys, we'll jump kind of into it. What is an ILIT? Why does it matter? That kind of be the first thing that we'll talk about. Most people spend their lives building wealth for family, and then accidentally leave a big chunk of it to the IRS. Today, we want to show you a simple concept that helps families keep more of what they've built, protect it from creditors, and pass it on the way they actually want to. And that tool is called an Irrevocable Life Insurance Trust. You're asking, well, what is an ILIT? It's basically a special trust that owns a life insurance policy instead of you owning it personally. And why does that matter? Well, because you personally own life insurance, the death benefit can be counted as part of your estate for estate tax purposes. When properly structured, an ILIT owns the policy. The life insurance proceeds can be kept outside of your taxable estate and passed to your family income tax-free and often estate tax-free. So one of the opportunities you're probably asking, well, how would we use this? And what is the specific reason that we would do that? We'll pull up the next slide. The first one is estate tax reduction. So more of their wealth goes to their family instead of taxes. The second one is liquidity. Life insurance creates cash right when it's needed most, often to help pay estate taxes or expenses without forcing the sale of a property or business. The third reason, the trust allows you to control how and when beneficiaries receive money. And the fourth reason is trust can offer protection from creditors, litigants, and lawsuits, or poor financial decisions by heirs. So it's not just about taxes, it's about control, protection, and legacy. So a lot of people would ask, how does an ILIT work? And I kind of bring in Jake on that a little bit, and also kind of field if we have 2 or 3 people that have any questions about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I like to think of these accounts in a couple ways. They're very interesting trust instruments. They provide a number of advantages to our clients that often are not available through other measures. So as we see on the slide here, really 3 or 4 core advantages here. Number one is estate tax avoidance, estate tax savings. Right, the general rule is that you own a life insurance policy. The value of that policy would normally be included in your gross estate at death. And by having the trust own that asset in the interim, it actually removes that incident of ownership from the donor's estate. It allows it to be excluded from your taxable estate. It also allows the benefits of that trust to pass tax-free to your beneficiaries. Second benefit, control, protection, creditor protection. Like any other trust, as attorneys, we put provisions in these documents that allow the donor to set up who gets the money and when. They can put limitations and restrictions on distributions for age-related purposes, milestones, anything else that they care to tie those distributions to. So it provides a significant amount of control, as well as protection from beneficiaries, creditors, divorces, bad decisions. So it works in some ways like other trust documents, but it adds a little extra punch for our clients here as well. And then from a legacy planning perspective, this is where it really becomes more of a unique instrument. One of the best features of an ILIT is that it provides flexibility to your heirs, because ILITs provide liquidity that can be used to pay estate taxes, pay off debts, fund buy-sell agreements, equalize inheritances so that maybe one beneficiary gets the business, another beneficiary gets cash. So by providing sort of a tax-friendly, a tax-efficient stream of income at death, it really opens up a lot of options.
Excellent. Well, we'll kind of go into, I know we talked about how it works. What we'll kind of do is go into how do you set one up? So how it works in simple terms is you will set up an irrevocable trust with an attorney. Typically, it would be a grantor trust. That trust will own the insurance policy, and then the grantor will gift money to that trust each year. The trustee will then use the money to pay the premiums, And then when the grantor passes away, the insurance company pays the death benefit to the trust and not to the estate. The trust then distributes the money to beneficiaries based on the rules that are set. And then instead of the IRS being the silent partner in your estate plan, your family typically is going to become the primary beneficiary. Now, there are a few small caveats that we'll kind of jump in to. The first one's gifting and crummy powers. I'll kind of give you a plain English explanation, and then we will turn it over to our in-house counsel here. So if you hear about crummy powers, all this means is that the IRS wants gifts to a trust to feel like real gifts to people, not just money marked in a structure. So beneficiaries are typically given the temporary right to withdraw the gift each year, even though in practice they often don't, and let the assets continue to grow. This step allows the gifts you make to the ILIT to qualify for the annual gift tax exclusion, which helps you fund premiums efficiently without using up your lifetime exemption. And I'll kind of have Jake expand on crummy powers a little bit as well.
Yeah, Charles, I appreciate that introduction. I think that's a good overview. Long story short, crummy powers are basically a way for our donor to prove to the IRS that they're making a present gift, a gift of a present interest, a real gift, not some gift that's long into the future. So they tend to, the way that this works in practice is that you provide a letter, you provide a notice, basically stating to your beneficiaries that they have the right to withdraw these funds for a short period of time, usually about 30 to 60 days. And that allows the donor to qualify for the annual lifetime gift exclusion. Now, in practice, it's kind of an antiquated, outdated system because nobody actually, for the most part, nobody actually ends up withdrawing those funds. You know, these beneficiaries are often minors. Those funds are being used to pay for the premiums. There's also kind of a handshake, wink, wink agreement amongst the family that, you know, these funds are being put in place for long-term planning purposes. So that's a little bit how it works in practice. But it is an area where you want to make sure you have a good trustee who's compliant and following the trust rules so that, you know, you don't have a problem down the road where maybe those contributions don't qualify for the annual exclusion.
Thank you, Jake. I appreciate it. And the next thing we'll talk about is kind of identifying opportunities to create ILITs. Typically, it's going to be their net worth is approaching or exceeding estate tax thresholds. They have a fairly illiquid estate that involves a business or real estate. They desire to keep the insurance proceeds out of their taxable estate. This is typically for 2026. It's going to be for a single person about 15 million. For a married couple, it's going to be 30 million. Anything over that dollar amount that's left in their estate is going to get taxed at a 40% rate, so roughly half. Blended families or those that need to make provisions for controlled distributions, and then also business owners that have large businesses that are planning exits or succession. And they're not for everyone. I mean, they tend to make sense when somebody's net worth is large enough that the estate taxes are going to be an issue. Or if the state's illiquid, meaning most wealth is locked up, tied up into a business or real estate. And then if there's a desire to protect kids from receiving too much money too fast, setting what we call spendthrift provisions. And then as well as we mentioned, the blended family that needs to kind of control how things are distributed. Some of the important trade-offs that we'll look at is you need to understand that ILITs are irrevocable. One important thing about it is once you give to the ILIT, the grantor is not going to be accessing that money. That means once it's set up, you just can't change your mind and take the policy back. So ILITs work best when they're part of a bigger, pretty well thought out plan, coordinated with attorneys, CPAs, and financial professionals. And I'll give you a great example. Let's say you got a family, they have a $15 million estate. Most of that's tied up in a business or real estate. When that owner passes, the estate's going to owe taxes, but there isn't enough cash to pay them, and they would end up having to liquidate, a generational or legacy business. Well, without the planning, that family would be forced to sell those assets at a bad time. With the ILIT-owned insurance policy, that trust receives tax-efficient cash at death, and which can be used to help cover all those estate costs and support the heirs without selling the real estate and without selling a business. And some of the other key takeaways, how to typically pitch this, and our key takeaways for agents to know is, they're very advanced, powerful estate planning tools. You're going to be having a good board certified estate planning attorney on speed dial as you're doing this. You do not want to write the policy typically before the grantor trust is set up. But it's on you agents. You agents are the ones who are going to be critical in identifying the opportunity, and it is usually coupled up with very large premium policies, which I'm sure most of you would love to be the writing and servicing agent on. You always want to coordinate with legal and tax professionals, and the focus on it is typically going to be client outcomes, tax efficiency, protection, and legacy. Any of your clients, if they're asking questions like, well, who's going to benefit from what I've built? How do I protect my family from unnecessary taxes? And how do I pass wealth responsibly, not just generally? ILITs are typically a great way to make sure their values live on and not just their money. But at the end of the day, I do want to, kind of stress, our job isn't to sell a trust. It's to recognize when a family might benefit from one and then bring the right professionals to the table to structure it correctly. And I'll take this time to give Jake a little bit more time to kind of go in. Any caveats or anything that you would like to kind of expand on?
No, I think we covered it, Charles. I think, again, these are in many ways, I kind of think of them as triple tax advantage accounts, right? On the front end, premium payments are considered gifts, but you can use the annual exclusion. On the back end, from an estate tax perspective, the policy proceeds can be excluded from the estate if structured correctly, and the death benefit is income tax free, right? So you've got income tax, estate tax, gift tax benefits here. These are great tools when structured correctly. And I think, just to answer one of these questions here, I think, the agent does have a role in a large role in structuring these properly. I mean, figuring out the client's objectives and then working behind the scenes with the CPA and the lawyer is an important part of the process to make sure that these trusts are set up correctly and then administered correctly, particularly on some of the crummy powers issues that we discussed. So I think they're great tools.
Excellent. I tend to agree. And guys, I'm going to kind of give you some of our background information. If you run into a scenario where this might be likely, Jake and I are always available to you. We'd be more than happy to walk you through the process and kind of have you go in and quarterback it with your client and provide a value added to high net worth families. And this is Jake's information. And this will be recorded and distributed as well, guys. Guys, I want to thank you guys for coming in and joining us today. We'd be more than happy to assist you with any questions you might have or even the execution of these and show you the most efficient way to do it. It's a great way to take a high net worth family and provide a very deep relationship and be able to write a large amount of business and provide some real value for clients that need it the most. Nobody wants to make the IRS their biggest beneficiary. There are not many guarantees that I can give in this business, but I can guarantee you that the family will spend that money better than the government will. And having said that, I appreciate your time today. Thanks again for my colleague and co-host Jake, and thanks for Chris Ladd keeping us going technically.
Before we leave, I just wanted to cover a few questions in the chat, if you guys don't mind. So I'll just read these out. So the first question: what causes most large ILIT cases to stall before issue?
I mean, that's
so
a,
go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Charles.
Jay. Uh, Typically, you are waiting on some of the estate parameters, or you are waiting on getting the trust and trust directive set up, and then the particulars that need to go into the grantor trust. So typically, once you recognize the opportunity, you're probably chomping at the bit to write a big $2 million in premium or et cetera. But there is some front end groundwork that really needs to be done. And that's usually needs to be done, before we go ahead and write the policy, because there is like a 3-year look back. And I'm going to kind of let Jake expand on that as well, because he's the attorney.
Yeah, I was gonna say, actually, I think you probably have maybe even a little bit more insight on the underwriting side there. But yeah, getting the underwriting side of things squared up, getting those trust documents in place ahead of time, providing yourself a bit of a runway. I mean, that's what tends to slow things down. But ultimately, as long as those get squared away, we can normally get things across the finish line. So I think Charles is spot on.
So the next question that came in, should the agent introduce the ILIT first, or should it come from the attorney?
It depends on the relationship. If you have a relationship with them and they meet the requirements and you're identifying the opportunity, you just disclose, hey, look, I'm not an attorney and I'm not a CPA. I'm not giving you any legal or tax advice that is incidental in my practice, but I know a guy and I know of a couple different strategies and solutions involving life insurance or annuities that can help your situation and be a value added. I would implore you to find your own counsel as well as your own CPA, and then bring them to the table. We'd be more than happy to hash this out so that you don't end up getting hit with a 40% estate tax. And that's how I would introduce it. I'd be comfortable around the subject. Say, they are somewhat complex, and I really do the funding portion of it. The writ and the irrevocable trust, those are done by an attorney. And you really, when you're at that level, you want to have a team working on it. This isn't something you're going to have one set of eyes on. You want a tax professional, you want an attorney, and either financial advisor or a tenured insurance specialist looking at it.
We have another question that came in. What type of life policy is typically used in ILITs?
So actually, you'd be surprised. A lot of ILITs have been written with, you can write them with terms. They're large terms, and sometimes they have to go to reinsurance because they're in blocks well over 5 million. Sometimes they're less. But term and whole, you could also use investments inside that same grantor trust to help pay the premiums if they have like investments that are somewhat income producing. And then also you could use possibly even an IUL. But you can use multiple types of insurance.
And I believe Jake already answered this question, but I'm wondering if Jake can touch on this again. How can agents add value in the ILIT process beyond just the policy?
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
Charles kind of briefly outlined that, but I mean, oftentimes, as we said, this process may start with you guys as agents. So starting with high level planning objectives, thinking about why the islet is being considered, and then being involved with the process behind the scenes, coordinating with the attorneys and CPAs, being involved in the funding and implementation of the trust, all things that the agents can and should do as part of a comprehensive review of the client's portfolio. So while attorneys will handle the legal drafting and CPAs might get more in the weeds on some of the tax planning things, I think the agents really fill in the gaps and do a lot of the legwork here.
Really, where the value added for the agent is when you've been doing insurance, you're gonna have a much better understanding, a conceptual understanding of premium load to death benefit correlation. What does that premium look like due to any underwriting concerns? There are going to be nuances and a couple details that are going to come a lot more natural to an insurance agent than say the delegated portions to the CPA and the attorney. It really requires that 3-point team, and nobody's going to know how an insurance policy funds, operates, generates dividends or cash better than a tenured insurance guy or gal. It's just that's where the value added is, because the underlying or correlated instrument is going to require an insurance specialist on. You guys, we can't replace that information. We can't replace that experience when it comes to structuring and putting policies together.
We have one final question. I have an ILIT for my minor son 20 years ago in California. Now that he is an adult, does he still need to have an ILIT?
I couldn't give you specific advice unless I knew a little bit more about your situation. And I have to say, as a fiduciary, when I give out, and I know this, I don't want to give out any blanket advice without knowing a little bit more about your personal balance sheet, what your tax exposure is, it would be difficult for me to answer that question carte blanche. And I would, due to FINRA, SEC requirements for the way I act as an investment advisor, I would sit down at the table and talk to you about that probably offline.
Well, thanks for joining, everyone. Charles, Jake, do you have any final thoughts before we close?
I'd be happy to talk to the person who asked that question offline for sure, and see if we can maybe provide some illumination on that. And I'm sure I got Jake backing me up as well. If they have time, I'm throwing it on the calendar. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I would add that. So I'm licensed in Colorado, Florida, Ohio, and PA. If folks have questions, need referrals to folks in other jurisdictions, I'm happy to kind of look into my network as well and provide names as I can. So if you guys are not in one of those 4 jurisdictions, I know that we've got some folks out on the West Coast here today. Let me know. Happy to serve as a resource however I can.
All right. Thanks for joining, everyone. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.